Millionaire CEO was told he's sterile, but his maid gave birth to twins and a DNA test revealed. Maxwell Thompson clutched the DNA results in his shaking hands, staring at the impossible numbers. 99.9999% match. He was the father of twins despite being told for 8 years that he could never have children. The document blurred through his tears, each droplet washing away a piece of the lie he'd built his entire adult life around. The certainty that he would never have a family of his own. What would you do if you discovered your greatest limitation was actually an elaborate lie designed to profit from your pain? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. But the truth was even more devastating than the lie. The renowned doctor who had diagnosed him had intentionally falsified results for dozens of wealthy young men, creating a hidden network of unsuspecting fathers and the children they never knew existed. Have you ever had a moment when everything you believed about yourself was suddenly proven false? In a world of wealth and privilege, the one thing money couldn't buy was the truth. Until now. By the end of this story, you'll question who controls the most intimate details of your life and whether the medical establishment you trust might be hiding secrets worth millions. Hit subscribe now if you've ever wondered how far people will go for money, power, and control over others' lives. Let me take you into the glass and steel world of Maxwell Thompson, where money could buy everything except the one thing he thought he could never have. Maxwell Thompson stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Newport Beach mansion, watching waves crash against the shoreline. At 24, he commanded a $350 million tech empire, but the view from the top was emptier than anyone knew. "We need to finalize the Asia deal today," he said into his earpiece, not bothering to say hello. "Their encryption standards don't meet our minimum requirements." His voice echoed through the mostly empty rooms of his coastal estate. 8,000 square feet of premium real estate, and not a single space that felt like home. 3 relationships had ended the same way. The most painful was Vanessa, the pharmaceutical heiress who'd handed back her wedding ring after just 7 months. "I want children, Max," she'd said, packing her designer luggage. "You can't give me that. We both know it." The diagnosis at 16 had shaped everything that followed. The doctor's voice still rang in his ears 8 years later. "The mumps infection has caused sterility. I'm sorry, but you won't be able to father children." Maxwell had built his walls high after that. If he couldn't have a family, he'd have success instead. His encryption software now protected government agencies and Fortune 500 companies worldwide. His phone buzzed with a text from his property manager. "Need approval for new housekeeper hire. Previous one quit without notice." "Whoever," Maxwell typed back. "Just make sure they sign the NDA." He'd gone through 3 housekeepers this year already. No one seemed to last in the cold perfection of his world. He ran his hand through his dark hair, the unusual blue-green eyes he'd inherited from his grandmother reflected in the window glass. His only legacy from family he barely remembered. Can you hear the emptiness of his footsteps echoing through all those perfect, hollow rooms? What price would you pay for success if it meant permanent loneliness? Amara Jackson stood in the entrance hall of the Thompson estate, her practical shoes silent on the marble floor. At 22, she'd seen plenty in her life, but nothing quite like this display of wealth. "You'll clean the main level on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays," the property manager said, barely looking up from her tablet. "Mr. Thompson works from home most days but prefers not to be disturbed." Amara nodded, mentally calculating how many hours of nursing school this job would fund. Just 3 semesters left until she could fulfill the promise she'd made to her grandmother Doris, who'd raised her after her mother died. "I understand," Amara said, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "I'll be thorough but invisible." The property manager looked up, slightly surprised. "Most people don't last here. Mr. Thompson can be demanding." "I need this job," Amara said simply, "and I'm used to hard work." Her first glimpse of Maxwell Thompson came an hour later. He walked through the kitchen while she was organizing the pantry, barely glancing her way. "You knew," he said. Not a question, just an observation. "Yes, sir. Amara Jackson." He nodded once, his unusual blue-green eyes flicking over her briefly before moving on. The entire interaction lasted less than 10 seconds. Later, as Amara was arranging his forgotten medication on his nightstand with a glass of water, a woman appeared in the doorway. Sleek blonde hair, designer suit, cold eyes. "I'm Tiffany Reynolds, Mr. Thompson's executive assistant," she said, arms crossed. "What are you doing in his bedroom?" Amara gestured to the medication. "Just organizing. That's not your job." Tiffany cut her off. "I handle Mr. Thompson's personal matters." As Tiffany turned to leave, she paused. "Some advice? Remember your place here. Maxwell Thompson employs many people. None of them are irreplaceable." The warning hung in the air between them. On her way out, Amara noticed the walls lined with photos of Maxwell with celebrities, tech giants, and politicians. But not a single family photo anywhere. Have you ever met someone whose public image masked a completely different private reality? 4 months into working at the Thompson estate, Amara stared at the pregnancy test in the tiny bathroom of her apartment, her hands trembling. 2 pink lines. Unmistakable. "This can't be happening," she whispered. She called her ex-boyfriend immediately, the shock still fresh. "That's impossible," he said flatly. "We broke up 6 months ago, and I was careful every time." "It's not mine." Amara hung up, mind racing. No one else had been in the picture since then. No one except. The memory came rushing back. The company holiday party she'd been asked to help serve. Maxwell, drinking heavily after a big contract signing. The unexpected connection between them in his home office afterward. The way he'd looked at her like he was actually seeing her for the first time. The next morning, he'd acted like nothing happened. She'd followed his lead, needing the job too badly to complicate things. Now, everything would change. At work, Amara tried to catch Maxwell alone, but he was rarely home, and when he was, Tiffany hovered nearby like a guard dog. "Mr. Thompson, could I speak with you privately?" Amara had asked 3 times over 2 weeks. "Schedule it with Tiffany," he'd reply without looking up from his laptop. Amara had written him notes, left messages with Tiffany, even tried to catch him in the kitchen during his rare appearances. Nothing. The morning sickness hit her hard in the 6th week. She ducked into bathrooms and behind trees in the garden, tried to hide her condition. "You don't look well," the property manager commented one morning. "Is everything okay?" "Just a stomach bug," Amara lied. At home, Amara called her grandmother Doris, her rock since childhood. "You need to tell him directly," Doris advised. "No assistance, no notes. Face to face. He barely knows I exist, Grandma. You're carrying his child. He'll know you exist soon enough." As weeks passed, Amara's uniform grew tighter. She started wearing loose sweaters, but there was no hiding it forever. In her 3rd month, she finally submitted paperwork requesting maternity leave, a last-ditch effort to force a conversation. The property manager raised her eyebrows, but said nothing as she forwarded the request. 2 days later, Maxwell appeared in the kitchen as Amara was cleaning up. "You requested maternity leave," he said, studying her with those unusual blue-green eyes. "Yes, sir." Amara straightened, one hand unconsciously moving to her stomach. Maxwell tilted his head, expression curious rather than angry. "Interesting. I'm taking a business trip to Dallas next week. The household staff is coming along. We'll talk then." As he walked away, Amara caught Tiffany watching from the hallway, her expression impossible to read. What would you do if your most private life change was about to become very public? The Dallas thunder rattled the hotel windows as Maxwell paced his luxury suite, firing off emails on his phone. The business conference had gone well, another partnership secured, another million in the bank. Nothing he cared about right now. "Mr. Thompson?" Amara's voice came from the door, connecting to the staff quarters. "I've prepared your suit for tomorrow's meeting." Maxwell turned, really looking at her for the first time in weeks. The loose hotel uniform couldn't hide her condition anymore. "How far along are you?" he asked bluntly. "Almost 5 months," she answered, meeting his gaze directly. Before he could respond, Amara gasped, one hand flying to her stomach. "What's wrong?" Maxwell asked, taking an involuntary step forward. "I don't know," she breathed. "Something doesn't feel right." A flash of lightning illuminated her face, contorted in sudden pain. Outside, the storm that had been threatening all day broke loose. "It's too early," she whispered, fear replacing the pain in her eyes. Maxwell stood frozen, his mind racing. This wasn't his problem. He could call hotel staff, an ambulance. Someone else could handle this. But something, duty, basic human decency, or a flash of that night they'd both pretended never happened, made him grab his car keys. "Come on," he said. "I'll drive you." The rain came down in sheets as Maxwell's Aston Martin cut through flooded Dallas streets. Amara's gasps of pain filled the silence between thunderclaps. "How much longer?" she asked through gritted teeth. 5 minutes, Maxwell replied, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "Hold on." They screeched to a halt outside Parkland Memorial Hospital, Maxwell half carrying Amara through sliding doors. "She's in labor," he told the startled nurse. "It's too early." The next few hours passed in a blur of medical jargon and hurried footsteps. Maxwell sat in the waiting room, checking emails instead of facing the strange emotions swirling inside him. Why was he still here? This wasn't his responsibility, yet he couldn't make himself leave. The doctor finally emerged, looking tired but smiling. "Congratulations," she said to Maxwell. She delivered healthy twin boys. Premature but strong. Maxwell blinked. "Twins? Yes, and beautiful ones. They have the most unusual blue-green eyes, just like yours actually." Something cold settled in Maxwell's stomach. "Can I see them?" he asked, his voice tight. The doctor led him to the nursery window. 2 tiny bundles with wisps of dark hair and, unmistakably, eyes the exact, unusual shade of his own. Maxwell laughed bitterly, anger replacing shock. "I want to see Ms. Jackson. Now." The doctor led him to Amara's room. She looked exhausted but peaceful until she saw his expression. "You think I wouldn't notice?" Maxwell's voice was low, dangerous. "Blue-green eyes, exactly like mine? You've planned this from the beginning, haven't you? Get a job in a rich man's house, get pregnant, claim it's his." Amara's eyes widened. "What? No. I want DNA tests. Right now. Tonight. Or I'm calling the police." "What would you do if faced with what appears to be an obvious attempt to claim your fortune?" "I'm recording this," Maxwell said coldly, holding up his phone as the nurse swabbed the inside of his cheek. Every step of the process. Across the room, Amara sat in her hospital bed, watching with quiet dignity as another nurse took samples from the sleeping twins. "I tried to tell you," she said softly. "For months, I left messages with Tiffany." "Convenient excuse," Maxwell replied, not looking at her. "Did you research me before taking the job? Find out my net worth? Pick me as your target." "I didn't know who you were when I applied," Amara said. "I needed work to pay for nursing school." Maxwell scoffed, turning away as his phone rang. "Daniel," he answered. "I need the best family law attorney in Texas. By morning." He walked into the hallway, lowering his voice. "No, I'm dealing with a paternity fraud situation." When he returned, Amara was holding one of the twins, looking down at the tiny face with an expression Maxwell couldn't read. "You should know," she said without looking up, "that I never planned to ask you for money. I just thought you had a right to know." "Know what? That you're attempting to commit fraud?" Amara finally looked up. "They look like you." Against his better judgment, Maxwell approached the bassinet, holding the second baby. The infant's eyes were closed, long dark lashes against pink skin. Something twisted in Maxwell's chest. "It won't work," he said, more to himself than to her. "I can't have children. Medical facts since I was 16. "What?" "Mumps. Cause sterility. Diagnosed by one of the top fertility specialists in New York." He turned away from the bassinet. "So whatever game you're playing, you picked the wrong mark." "I'm not playing any game," Amara said. "These are your sons." Maxwell headed for the door. "We'll let the DNA test settle this. I'll be back when the results are in." 3 days later, Maxwell sat in his hotel suite, staring at his phone. The hospital had called. The results were in. His hand shook as he dialed the number. "Mr. Thompson," the doctor greeted him. "I have your results." "Just tell me," Maxwell said. "The probability of paternity is 99.9999%. Congratulations, you are definitely the father of both twins." The phone slipped from Maxwell's hand, clattering to the floor as his legs gave out beneath him. Impossible. It was medically impossible. Unless Dr. Kessler had lied to him, had been lying for 8 years. But why would a renowned fertility specialist lie about something so fundamental? As the room spun around him, a terrible realization began to take shape. What would you question about your life if something you believed for years was suddenly disproven? Maxwell paced his hotel suite, the DNA results still open on his laptop. His entire world had collapsed in a single phone call. He grabbed his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. Dr. Kessler's office. A cheerful receptionist answered. "I need to speak with him immediately." "This is Maxwell Thompson." After a long wait, the smooth, confident voice of Dr. Benjamin Kessler came on the line. "Maxwell, what a surprise. It's been years. You told me I couldn't have children," Maxwell said, his voice shaking. "You were wrong." A pause. "That's remarkable. Nature finds a way sometimes." "Miraculous, really?" "Not miraculous. Impossible. Unless you lied to me." "Mr. Thompson, medicine isn't always exact. Perhaps there was a misdiagnosis. I'm a father. To twins. DNA confirmed." Another pause. "Congratulations. That's wonderful news." Maxwell hung up, the doctor's too smooth response setting off alarm bells. He sank onto the edge of the bed, head in his hands. Everything he believed about himself for 8 years had just been proven false. He returned to the hospital that afternoon, seeing the twins with new eyes. One was awake, tiny fists waving in the air. Maxwell leaned closer, noting the shape of the baby's nose, just like his own. "They need names," Amara said quietly from her bed. Maxwell turned, really looking at her. Not as his housekeeper, not as someone trying to con him, just as the mother of his children. "I tried to tell you," she said. "I left messages with Tiffany. Try to talk to you directly. I never planned for this to happen." "I need to see those messages," Maxwell said, pulling out his phone. He searched his text history, emails, voicemails. Nothing from Amara. Then he checked his deleted folder. There they were. 6 messages from Amara, all deleted before he'd seen them. "Tiffany," he whispered, pieces clicking into place. Before he could explain, his phone buzzed with a security alert from his home system. Video showed Tiffany entering Amara's quarters, rifling through drawers, removing papers. "What is she looking for?" Amara asked, watching over his shoulder. "I don't know," Maxwell said, "but I want to find out." Have you ever discovered someone close to you was hiding important information? How did it change your perspective? Back in his hotel room, Maxwell pulled up more security footage. He watched weeks of recordings at high speed, focusing on Tiffany's movements. A pattern emerged. Every time Amara approached his office, Tiffany intercepted her. Notes left on his desk disappeared. Tiffany deleted texts, emails, voicemails, all from Amara. "What?" Maxwell muttered, rubbing his tired eyes. He called his property manager in California. "Tell me about hiring Amara Jackson," he said without preamble. "She was one of 3 candidates," the manager replied. Tiffany was very insistent. "We choose Ms. Jackson," said her background check was superior. Tiffany was involved in the hiring. "She's never taken interest in household staff before. I thought it was strange, but she is your right hand." Maxwell ended the call, the pieces forming a disturbing picture. He returned to the hospital, finding Amara feeding one of the twins. "Tell me about your interview process," he said. Amara looked up, surprised. It was standard, though Ms. Reynolds conducted the final interview, which seemed odd for an executive assistant. "Did you know who I was before applying?" "Not really. I needed a job that paid well enough for nursing school. My grandmother raised me after my mom died. I promised her I'd get my degree." Maxwell watched her gentle efficiency with the baby. Nothing about her suggested deception. "Would you like to hold him?" she asked suddenly. "I don't know how," Maxwell admitted. "Like this," she demonstrated, carefully transferring the tiny bundle. The weight of his son in his arms hit Maxwell like a physical blow. This was real. This was his child. His eyes burned as he looked down at the small face. "Were their names?" he asked, voice rough. I was thinking Daniel and Michael, after my grandfather and uncle. Maxwell nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. I need to fly your grandmother out here, he said finally. You'll need help when you leave the hospital. You don't have to. I want to. Maxwell interrupted. They're my sons too. His phone rang. Tiffany. He ignored it, focusing instead on the perfect tiny fingers gripping his thumb. Have you ever had a moment when everything you thought you wanted suddenly changed? Mr. Thompson, the press is asking for comment on rumors you've become a father, Tiffany said, her voice tight with forced professionalism. The board is concerned about stock implications. Maxwell stood on the hospital helipad, the Dallas skyline stretching behind him. Tell them I'll issue a statement tomorrow. But sir, that's all, Tiffany. He hung up, turning to face Daniel Chun, his lawyer and oldest friend, who just stepped off the helicopter. This better be good, Max. I was in Aspen. I need your help, Maxwell said, leading him inside. Something bigger than a paternity surprise is happening. In Amara's room, Doris Jackson sat in a chair by the window, a tiny baby cradled in each arm. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun, her posture straight despite her 70 years. So you're the young man who got my granddaughter pregnant, she said, eyeing Maxwell critically. Grandma. Amara protested weakly from her bed. Yes, ma'am, Maxwell replied, though I just found out myself. Doris snorted. Men, always the last to know anything. Daniel raised an eyebrow at the exchange, but kept his thoughts to himself. Later, in the hospital cafeteria, Maxwell showed Daniel everything. The DNA results, the security footage of Tiffany, the deleted messages. This is weird, man, Daniel admitted. But maybe Tiffany just has a thing for you. Jealousy explains a lot. Check this out. Maxwell pulled up his laptop. 3 of my friends from college. All wealthy, all diagnosed by Dr. Kessler with fertility issues. Coincidence? Maybe. But 2 of them mentioned household staff getting pregnant recently. They both fired the women, assuming they were cheated on. Daniel whistled low. You think there's a connection between Kessler and these pregnancies? I think something calculated is happening, and Tiffany's involved. Pretty elaborate scheme, Daniel mused. Look into Kessler and Tiffany's background. I want to know if they've ever crossed paths. That night, Maxwell's security system alerted him to movement in his home office. The camera showed Tiffany at his computer, phone pressed to her ear. He knows something, she was saying. We need to accelerate the timeline. If you discovered someone you trusted was betraying you, would you confront them immediately or gather more evidence? Young man, we need to talk. Doris Jackson cornered Maxwell in the hospital hallway 3 days after the twins' birth. Her eyes, so like Amara's, fixed him with a look that made him straighten his posture automatically. Yes, ma'am. Those boys in there are your flesh and blood. What are your intentions toward them? And my granddaughter? Maxwell blinked and used to such direct questioning. I'm arranging the best medical care, a security team, financial support. I didn't ask what you're buying them, Doris cut in. I asked about your intentions. The question hit Maxwell like cold water. What were his intentions beyond throwing money at the situation? I don't know, he admitted. I never thought I could have children. I never planned for this. Doris's expression softened slightly. Nobody plans for life's biggest changes. My daughter, Amara's mother, died when Amara was just 7. I certainly didn't plan on raising another child at 60. How did you do it? Maxwell asked, genuinely curious. One day at a time, Doris said, with love and patience. 2 things money can't do. Maxwell leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. I don't know how to be a father. My own was never around. That right there tells me you'll do fine, Doris said. You already know what not to do. From the doorway, Amara watched this exchange, her heart tightening at the vulnerability on Maxwell's face. She'd only ever seen him confident, cold, commanding. This uncertain man was someone new. Want to learn how to change a diaper? She asked, stepping into the hallway. Maxwell looked up, oddly grateful for the interruption. Is that a trick question? Only if you do it wrong. Amara smiled. Inside the room, Maxwell awkwardly followed Amara's instructions, his hands enormous next to the tiny baby. Support his head. There you go, she guided. When the task was complete, Maxwell looked up with unexpected pride. Not bad for first try. Mr. Thompson. Tiffany's voice cut through the moment. She stood in the doorway, tablet in hand. We have an emergency with the Asian contract. The board has called an urgent meeting. It can wait, Maxwell said, not looking up from his son. Sir, this is millions of dollars at stake. They need you on the video call now. I said it can wait, Tiffany. Something flashed across her face. Anger quickly masked. Of course, sir. Her eyes lingered on Amara for a moment before she left. She doesn't like me much, Amara observed. The feeling is becoming mutual, Maxwell replied. That night, his phone buzzed with another security alert. Someone was accessing his private server from inside his house. Would you trust your instincts if they contradicted everything you thought you knew about someone close to you? I thought we agreed you'd stop working from my home office, Maxwell said, his voice deadly quiet as he entered his Newport Beach mansion. Tiffany froze at his desk, a flash drive in her hand. Mr. Thompson, you're back early. What's on the drive, Tiffany? Just some contracts for review. Don't lie to me. Maxwell's voice remained calm, but his eyes were ice. I know about the deleted messages from Amara. I know you've been accessing my private files. What I don't know is why. Tiffany's mask slipped. You weren't supposed to find out like this. Find out what? About the babies. About any of it. She sank into his chair. It wasn't personal. Explain. Now, I was approached 2 years ago. Offered a lot of money to place certain women in households of men who'd been diagnosed by Dr. Kessler. Maxwell's blood ran cold. You deliberately brought Amara into my house. She fit the profile. College student, financial need, no strong family connections except her grandmother. Tiffany looked away. They said nobody would get hurt. The men would get children they thought they couldn't have. The women would get financial security. Who is that? Tiffany shook her head. I can't. You can and you will. Maxwell cut in. Or I call the FBI right now. New Life Adoption Network, she finally said. They work with Dr. Kessler. Daniel entered, holding a folder. You need to see this, Max. Inside were records connecting Tiffany to Dr. Kessler's office. She'd worked there briefly 6 years ago. How many others? Maxwell demanded. I don't know exactly. Dozens. Maybe more. Maxwell's security team found hidden accounts linking payments from New Life to Tiffany. Over $200,000 total. They positioned women like Amara as household staff for wealthy men diagnosed as sterile by Kessler, Daniel summarized, reviewing the evidence. The men, believing they couldn't father children, took fewer precautions. When pregnancies resulted, most assumed they were being scammed or cheated on. But why? Maxwell asked. What's the end game? Money, Daniel said simply. The women either get settlements from the men, or the babies end up with New Life for private adoptions to wealthy couples willing to pay huge sums to skip the normal process. Was Amara part of this? The question had haunted Maxwell for days. No evidence suggests she knew anything, Daniel confirmed. Her background is exactly what she claimed. Nursing student, raised by her grandmother, no connection to Kessler or New Life. Maxwell's phone rang, the head of security from his Atlanta office. Sir, we found something on the security footage you requested. Dr. Kessler visited last month for the executive health screenings. He met privately with someone from New Life Adoption in the parking garage. Maxwell hung up, turning to Daniel with cold fury. They've done this to at least 28 other men, and none of them know they have children. Has a shock ever made you question who you can truly trust in your life? The California sunset painted the hospital room in gold as Maxwell watched Amara rock one of the twins. 3 weeks had passed since the DNA test changed everything. The babies, now officially named Daniel and Michael Thompson, were finally cleared to leave the hospital. Did you ever suspect? Maxwell asked, breaking the comfortable silence. About Tiffany and Dr. Kessler? Amara shook her head. I needed the job. I didn't question why I got hired so quickly. She looked up. Did you fire her? She's cooperating with our investigation in exchange for immunity, Maxwell said. The FBI is building a case against New Life and Kessler. I still can't believe it, Amara said. All those men who don't know they have children. Maxwell moved to the window, watching the sunset. Almost a no either. Would that have been better? Amara asked quietly. To never know? The question hung between them. No, Maxwell finally said, turning back to her. Whatever happens next, I'm glad I know about them. Something had shifted between them over these weeks. The initial distrust had given way to a tentative partnership, then something warmer. I've been meaning to ask, Maxwell said, sitting in the chair across from her. What happens with nursing school now? Amara sighed. I'll have to put it on hold, I guess. The twins need me full-time. What if you didn't have to choose? Maxwell asked. I can arrange for help, flexible scheduling, whatever you need. You shouldn't abandon your dream. Amara studied his face, searching for ulterior motives and finding none. Why would you do that? Because you're their mother, Maxwell said simply, and they deserve a mother who's fulfilled by her life. He hesitated. My mother gave up everything for my father's career. She was miserable. I don't want that for our sons. The words "our sons" hung in the air, a bridge between them. You're different than I thought, Amara admitted. Different how? At the house, you barely noticed anyone, like we were furniture. But here, with the twins, you're present. You see them. You see me. Maxwell took Daniel from her arms, his movements now confident after weeks of practice. I spent 8 years believing I couldn't have this, he said, looking down at his son. Now that I do, I don't want to miss a moment. As if on cue, his phone rang. Dr. Kessler's private number flashed on the screen. Thompson, he answered, putting it on speaker. Maxwell, Kessler's smooth voice filled the room. I believe we have a misunderstanding that could damage both our reputations. I'm prepared to offer you $20 million to put this matter to rest quietly. Maxwell's eyes met Amara's. You can't buy silence, doctor. Not anymore. Think of what you're doing, Kessler warned. No one needs to know about this unfortunate situation. 28 fathers don't know they have children because of you, Maxwell replied. That's not an unfortunate situation. That's a crime. The line went dead. He won't stop at a phone call, Amara warned. I know, Maxwell said, but neither will I. Can something beautiful ever truly grow from a foundation built on deception? All evidence points to a coordinated scheme dating back at least 8 years. Maxwell explained to the FBI agents in his home office. Dr. Kessler deliberately misdiagnosed young, wealthy men with sterility, then worked with New Life Adoption to place women in their households. Agent Rivera nodded, reviewing the files Daniel had compiled. And you have proof Ms. Reynolds was the connection in your case. Maxwell played the recording of Tiffany's confession. We've identified 28 potential victims so far, Daniel added, all diagnosed by Kessler, all with significant assets. Some of these men have children they don't know about, Maxwell continued. Others paid settlements thinking they were being scammed when they were actually the fathers. And some babies were given up for adoption through New Life. For astronomical fees, Agent Rivera noted, examining the financial records. They charged desperate couples up to $500,000 for guaranteed placements. The doorbell rang, interrupting them. Maxwell checked the security feed to see reporter Sarah Chun on his doorstep. I need to take this, he said. She's been investigating New Life independently. In the living room, Amara was showing Doris how to use the state-of-the-art baby monitors. Both women looked up as Maxwell led Sarah in. Ms. Chun, this is Amara Jackson and her grandmother Doris. They're part of this story too. Sarah nodded respectfully. I've been tracking New Life for months. 3 couples came to me after paying them huge sums and getting nothing in return. But what you've uncovered is far worse. We have evidence that Dr. Benjamin Kessler falsified medical records to tell young, wealthy men they were sterile, Maxwell explained. Then New Life would place women in their households, hoping nature would take its course. They targeted men who had everything except the ability to have children, Sarah said, understanding dawning. That's diabolical. We're working with the FBI now, Maxwell continued, but we want the story public. Other victims need to know. I'll need to verify everything independently, Sarah warned, and the blowback will be intense. I'm ready, Maxwell said firmly. The story broke the next morning. Fertility fraud ring exposed. Maxwell's phone exploded with calls from other men who'd seen Dr. Kessler. The FBI opened a formal investigation. New Life's offices were raided. In the midst of the chaos, Maxwell and Amara presented a united front at a press conference. "I was told for 8 years that I couldn't father children," Maxwell explained to the cameras. "That lie shaped every relationship, every life choice I made. There are other men out there living with the same lie. Some have children they don't know about. They deserve the truth." The public reaction was immediate and overwhelming. More men came forward. Former New Life employees offered evidence. Dr. Kessler's pristine reputation crumbled as patient after patient questioned their diagnoses. That evening, as Maxwell checked the security system before bed, he noticed the silent alarm had been triggered at the guest house where Doris was staying. Racing across the property, he found the door ajar, signs of a struggle inside. "Doris? Doris!" He called, heart pounding. She emerged from the bathroom, shaken but unhurt, a heavy vase in her hand. "Someone broke in," she said. "He asked where the babies were. I hit him with this, and he ran." Maxwell's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Back off, or next time we won't just ask questions. We need to leave," Maxwell told Amara when he returned to the main house. "Now, someone just threatened your grandmother to get to the twins." As if to emphasize his point, the nursery alarm suddenly blared through the house. Would you risk everything to protect your family from those who threaten them? The private island off the coast of Florida wasn't on any tourist maps. Maxwell had purchased it through a shell corporation years ago as a potential data center location. Now it served a different purpose, keeping his newfound family safe. The FBI arrested 3 New Life executives this morning, Daniel reported via secure video link. But Kessler is still at large, and so is the man who broke into Doris's room. Maxwell paced the beach house living room, the twins sleeping peacefully in a nearby room with Amara watching over them. What about Tiffany? In protective custody. She's given them everything: names, dates, bank accounts. The whole operation is coming down. 2 weeks had passed since they fled California. The FBI had moved quickly, but not quickly enough to prevent the threat reaching them at home. "Any other victims come forward?" Maxwell asked. 17 so far. 5 have confirmed children they didn't know about. Daniel's expression darkened. 2 had already paid settlements to make the problem go away. They're devastated. Maxwell rubbed his eyes. "And the adoptions?" "The FBI is working with the courts. It's complicated. Some of these children have been with adoptive families for years." Maxwell ended the call, stepping out onto the deck where Doris sat watching the sunset. "You know," she said without looking up, "when Amara told me she was pregnant, I assumed the father would want nothing to do with her. Rich men rarely want complications." "I'm not most men," Maxwell said, joining her. "No, you're not," Doris agreed. "You could have thrown money at this problem and walked away. Many would have. They're my sons," Maxwell said simply. "And what about my granddaughter?" Doris asked, finally looking at him. "What is she to you?" The question caught Maxwell off guard. What was Amara to him? The mother of his children, certainly. But in these weeks of crisis, she'd become something more. A partner, a confidant, perhaps even a friend. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I want to find out." Doris nodded, satisfied with his honesty. Inside, Amara was singing softly to Michael, who had woken fussy. Maxwell paused in the doorway, struck by the simple beauty of the moment. "The FBI caught Tiffany's contact at New Life," he said quietly. "They're closing in on Kessler." Amara looked up. "Will we be safe soon?" "I think so." Maxwell moved to the crib where Daniel still slept. Daniel arranged for your nursing program to accept remote learning for the semester. You can start again next week if you want. Tears filled Amara's eyes. "You remembered." "Of course I did." Maxwell's voice was gentle. "Just because we're dealing with all this doesn't mean your dreams get put on hold." His phone rang. "Agent Rivera." "We got him," she said without preamble. "Kessler was trying to board a private plane to the Cayman Islands, and we found his records. The scheme goes back 10 years, Mr. Thompson. Over 40 victims. And the man who threatened Doris? In custody. He's talking." This case is solid. After the call, Maxwell found Amara in the kitchen. They caught Kessler, he told her. It's almost over. What happens next? She asked. With us, I mean. I don't know, Maxwell admitted. But I'd like to find out together. For the first time in weeks, Amara smiled without reservation. I like that too. When does a crisis situation reveal someone's true character to you? 3 months after the arrests, Maxwell stood at the window of his new home, a beachfront property in Malibu far from the cold mansion he'd once inhabited. Outside, Amara walked along the sand, a twin in each arm, Doris following with a beach umbrella. His phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Kessler took a plea deal. 20 years. Full cooperation, naming other doctors involved. The New Life scandal had grown beyond anyone's expectations. 3 more fertility specialists had been implicated. Over 60 men had discovered they'd been misdiagnosed. 37 children were identified who had been conceived under the scheme. Some were with their biological fathers. Others remained with adoptive families, but now had relationships with their birth parents. Maxwell had established a foundation to help the affected families with legal costs, counseling, and education funds for the children. The story had made headlines for weeks, with Maxwell and Amara becoming reluctant public figures in the fight for justice. But today wasn't about the case. Today was about something entirely new. Maxwell checked his reflection one last time, straightened his casual linen shirt, and headed down to the beach. There's Daddy, Amara said to the twins, who gurgled and reached for him as he approached. At 6 months old, they were growing fast, their personalities emerging, Daniel thoughtful and observant, Michael more adventurous. Are you sure about watching them all evening? Maxwell asked Doris. She waved him off. Go. Enjoy yourselves. These boys and I have plans involving that new rubber duck set. Maxwell held the car door for Amara. She'd chosen a simple blue dress that made her eyes shine, her hair loose around her shoulders. You look beautiful, he said, meaning it. You clean up pretty well yourself, she replied with a smile. So, where are we going? It's a surprise. Maxwell drove them up the coast to a small, exclusive restaurant overlooking the ocean. Our first real date deserves something special. Is that what this is? Amara asked. A real date? I hope so, Maxwell replied. Unless you've got other plans? She laughed, the sound warming something deep inside him. No other plans. Over dinner, they talked about everything except the case. Her nursing studies, his new focus on medical ethics and tech, the twins' latest achievements. Daniel rolled over yesterday, Amara said proudly. Michael tried to copy him and got stuck halfway. They're going to be competitive, Maxwell noted, like their father, but hopefully with their mother's people skills, Amara teased. As the sun set over the Pacific, Maxwell reached across the table for her hand. These past months haven't been conventional, to say the least. Nothing about us is conventional, Amara agreed. But I've never been happier, Maxwell continued. And it's not just the twins. It's you, Amara. You've changed how I see everything. I think we both changed, she said softly. Later, walking along a moonlit beach, Maxwell stopped and turned to her. I want to do this right. Take it slow. Build something real. I'd like that, Amara said, stepping closer. Their first kiss was gentle, questioning, then deepening with certainty. When they broke apart, both were smiling. We should get back to the twins, Amara said, though she made no move to leave. 5 more minutes, Maxwell murmured, pulling her close again. The next morning, Maxwell's phone rang with news that another doctor associated with Kessler had been identified in Chicago. The fight isn't over, he told Amara after the call. We knew it wouldn't be, she replied, bouncing Michael on her hip. But we're not facing it alone anymore. Maxwell looked around at his transformed home. Toys scattered across what had once been pristine floors, baby bottles next to expensive coffee machines, the sound of Doris singing to Daniel from the nursery. Life wasn't perfect, but for the first time it was real. Do you believe people can truly change when life gives them unexpected second chances? Happy birthday, dear Daniel and Michael, the gathered crowd sang as Amara held the twins before their first birthday cake. The baby's eyes widened at the single candle on each of their matching cakes. small hands reaching for the flames before Maxwell gently caught them. "Not so fast, little man," he laughed. "Blow first, then touch." The gathering at their Malibu home included Doris, Daniel and his wife, Maxwell's board members who'd stood by him through the scandal, and several other families affected by the fertility fraud scheme who had become close friends over the past year. 1 year. It seemed impossible that just 12 months ago, Maxwell had been alone in his empty mansion, believing he would never have a family of his own. Now his home rang with laughter, tiny footsteps, and occasional tears. All the messy, wonderful sounds of family life. After cake and presents, as the twins napped under Doris's watchful eye, Maxwell found Amara on the deck overlooking the ocean. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "Just thinking about how much has changed," she replied, leaning back against him. "A year ago, I was your housekeeper, terrified to tell you I was pregnant. And I was an isolated workaholic who thought he couldn't have children," Maxwell added. The New Life case had concluded 3 months earlier with guilty pleas from all major participants. Dr. Kessler's testimony had exposed a network of corrupt medical professionals who had profited from the pain and vulnerability of their patients. Maxwell's foundation now advocated for stricter oversight of fertility clinics and transparency in adoption processes. Amara, between caring for the twins and completing her nursing degree, had become a passionate speaker on patients' rights. "I got you something," Maxwell said, pulling a small box from his pocket. "It's not a birthday present. It's something else entirely." Amara turned, her expression curious as she opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "I know we agreed to take things slow," Maxwell said, suddenly nervous. "And I'll wait as long as you need. But I want you to know that I'm all in. With you, with our family, with our future together." "Maxwell Thompson," Amara said, tears filling her eyes. "Are you proposing to me on our son's birthday?" "Bad timing," he asked, wincing. "Perfect timing," she corrected, pulling him close for a kiss. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Later that evening, after the guests had gone and the twins were asleep, Maxwell stood at the nursery door watching Amara tuck the blankets around their sons. On the wall hung photos of their extraordinary year. The twins' first day home, Maxwell's awkward first diaper change, Amara's nursing school pinning ceremony with the babies in matching outfits, Doris teaching Maxwell to make her famous sweet potato pie. 5 years later, the Thompson household had expanded again. 4-year-old Eliza, conceived the natural way with no medical intervention needed, danced around the living room while her big brothers built elaborate block towers. Maxwell, now focused on using his tech fortune to reform medical ethics practices, watched his family from his home office doorway. Amara, having completed her nursing degree with honors, divided her time between pediatric nursing and the foundation they'd established together. The annual gathering of families affected by the fertility fraud had grown into a nationwide support network. The children, biological siblings in many cases due to the scheme, formed connections that would last a lifetime. Doris, now approaching 80 but still sharp as ever, supervised the controlled chaos from her favorite armchair. "Daddy, look," Eliza called, running to Maxwell with a drawing. "It's our family." The crayon picture showed 5 stick figures of varying heights, plus a smaller figure Maxwell assumed was Doris. "It's perfect," he told her, lifting her into his arms. "Just like the real thing." Amara caught his eye across the room and smiled. The private smile they still shared in quiet moments of acknowledgement. From the most unlikely beginning, through deception and danger, they had forged something precious and real. Sometimes, Maxwell often said at foundation events, the greatest gifts come from our deepest wounds. And sometimes the truth, however painful, sets us free to find joy we never imagined possible. Sometimes life's greatest blessings come disguised as our biggest challenges. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories about truth, family, and unexpected second chances. How can betrayal and deception sometimes lead us to our truest path and deepest connections?